Alright guys, well, a lot has been going on in the crypto markets this past week. It's been pretty crazy, and I just want to kind of come here and kind of put all these pieces together for you guys. There's a lot that happened, and it's whales that are messing with retail's money. And it's not just SBF. CZ was also doing some revenge stuff, which that actually ended up backfiring on all of his clients as well. So yeah, we're just going to cover that in today's video. I also want to do a little market coverage for the equities market because it's actually rallying quite hard right now, which is even more bearish for Bitcoin in the long term because we're all going into a recession. So when equities Bitcoin dumps when equities rally. That means when equities dump, Bitcoin is going to dump harder. So we're going to talk about that later in this episode. As usual, make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe, hit that notifications bell, and we'll go ahead and jump right into today's video. Alright, so you guys can see here, this is probably the best short explanation I've seen on Twitter, and I've read several articles from different people, and I think this one is the best. It's by Autism Capital here. So, Alameda, basically what happened was when Luna imploded, they took huge losses, and they were borrowing real dollars against FTT's serum for a while, and then they decided to take the 20% anchor yield with the UST, right, which is what a lot of people did. And then, yeah, basically UST went down, and a lot of different lending desks that the FTX was using, they blew up after 3AC blew up. So yeah, if a desk holding your loan collateralized by FTT goes bankrupt, your FTT collateral gets liquidated. That means the M2M of your collateral for every loan goes down too. So Alameda was then incentivized to bail out its insolvent lending counterparties to prevent collateral liquidation and the relevant of the extent of FTT's SRM collateralized loans. A 9-figure sell-off of FTT SRM would likely affect their M2M positions by 10 figures, 10 figures being $1 billion. Hence the altruistic acquisition of Voyager and others. So the reason why he actually bought out a lot of these companies was because otherwise they would get destroyed, right? Their tokens would get destroyed. So this is still the issue for this is the crypto markets were going down because of systematic deleveraging in the system. This is due to the Federal Reserve raising rates and the entire economy going into a recession. So people losing money, they have to cash out to pay for everyday stuff because of inflation, and then the overall market liquidity goes down while FTX and SAM are highly leveraged. So because of their highly inflationary emissions, there was even more selling pressure on these particular coins. Okay, and down here, let's go ahead and just fast forward to this week. SBF has been mean to CZ on Twitter. He basically said, "Oh, can CZ even enter Washington D.C. because he's a Chinese national?" And I honestly, I think CZ he's old enough and mature enough not to take this personally. But SBF really shouldn't have been poking at the belly of CZ because one little tweet from CZ basically ended Sam's career, and now he's more than likely going to go to jail. I'm like 99.999% sure he's going to go to jail because he was really highly connected to the WEF as well as a lot of the American officials. And with a scam this big, they're going to all turn against him, even though he gave them a ton of money for their campaigns. It's going to be very interesting to see what unfolds. Now, I think a really big issue that a lot of people don't realize is that Sam, he was a big investor in SushiSwap, and I think let me think a bunch of other protocols, right? What was it? Recently they also had 2 more exchanges that have actually blocked people from withdrawing their funds, and it's quite possible. I don't want to spread FUD because it's quite possible that there are other big exchanges that were very highly exposed to FTX and FTT as well as Solana and all these other tokens. So it's quite possible that this is going to have huge ripple effects in the coming weeks, especially since it's very unlikely that they will be able to get that money back into FTT to pay off all of this collateralization. Okay, so it's very unlikely that CZ knew that this would completely blow up FTX, but it turns out Alameda was so far leveraged and compromised at the time that he couldn't backstop the 500 million FTT sell. So then they tried to defend the FTT price at $22, and then they ran out of liquidity, and then FTT dropped to $4, and another $4 billion in the hole to the balance sheet. So yeah, all these centralized lending desks that were fueled by retardation and moral hazard loaned real money to Alameda against FTT serum collateral. I mean, even in my circles, everyone wants to know what the inside scoop is on Sam and his investments, so that way they can get that pump, right? And it turned out that Sam had everything propped up. It was basically a house of cards that was ready to fall down at any time. Okay. On my channel here, I mean, used to push Solana quite a bit when it first came out, and I really liked Solana, the idea of it. I traded on Serum back when it first came out, as well as Bonfida Exchange, and I really liked all the decentralization and speed of Solana. But it doesn't seem to work that well. You know, they always have outages, especially once they get a lot of users, and the bots can easily access the nodes, which overloads them and shuts them down. So this is going to have ripple effects, guys, and the really bad part about this is actually that you can see here yesterday the stock market had a huge pump just as Bitcoin dumped. What happened was basically inflation went down by 0.1%. Oh my goodness. And the bots, basically all the bots from the brokerage companies, and they basically sold the dollar and purchased equities, and it dumped the dollar really low. You can see here DXY got dumped really, really hard. It went from 110 all the way down to 107, and there's a huge amount of safety net right here. But if it breaks through this, it could go even lower, and equities are going to shoot even higher. Now, the issue with this is that as the equities they go higher, then the Fed, the Federal Reserve of America, is going to be forced to, put the hammer on this. And the reason they're going to do that is because the SPY, the equities market going up, has a direct correlation with inflation going up. And their number one priority is to kill inflation. So, for example, if the price of oil and stuff goes up, and that's an equity, right? Then all that stuff goes up. Then that means if the price of oil goes up, then that means the inflation for oil and energy goes up. And the same with these goods and everything. So we're looking at a huge dump in the market, possibly a Christmas rally, but in January, February, it's going to dump very hardcore. And with Bitcoin lagging behind, they completely missed out on the pump in the equities market yesterday. This means that once the equities market does dump again, the SPX and the SPY, if they dump again, Bitcoin is going to dump down to $12,000, $10,000, and that's going to start a sort of, what do you call it? A combination effect, a sort of domino effect. All the people who are long from $10,000 from years ago, or even the big whales, they're going to get scared, and they're going to start selling right around the $15,000 mark. So if Bitcoin can't recover up to $19,000 or $18,000, and it seems very unlikely right now with the news that just came out, then it's quite possible Bitcoin could be going down even lower. So I would be very careful about getting into the market right now. If you are getting in, make sure you're trying either shorting, or you're doing shorting with low leverage, or doing long, just doing a straight long, buy the tokens, buy the dip over time. I wouldn't do any leverage trading right now, just because you never know if the market will pump tomorrow on some good news. Maybe FTX Sam can come out with some good news, some sort of buyout, but I'm highly doubting anybody will be able to loan him $7 billion. It's very, very unlikely. Anyways, that's it for the update today. Just so you guys know, there is no more huge catalysts with regards to sort of announcements this week. The inflation rate did go down like 0.1%, which is nothing, and the bots just kicked in and bought up a crap ton of SPX. And this is just to get the retail markets to FOMO in, so that way the big banks and their hedge funds can get a huge Christmas bonus. That's the only reason that this rally happened, was because the bots bought up, and now they're going to dump on retail right after Christmas. And it's possible to happen before Christmas if something else in the actual financial system breaks. So if a bank does go under, JP Morgan, or many other banks, if they end up crashing, or something really big happens, for example, the dollar could crash really hard, and that would really hurt the U.S. economy. This is going to push the U.S. dollar going down by 2% in one day. Okay, yeah, about 2% in one day. This is going to basically push up inflation for U.S. people by about 1% next month. So when the CPI comes out next month, we're going to be 1% higher because the dollar went down 1%. I believe the American GDP was like 60% imports, which means all the imports are going to get 2% more expensive. So yeah, it's not looking very good for inflation, and this little tiny dip in inflation this month for the CPI reading doesn't mean anything. It's just Biden who basically was released the American oil reserves, which means we're now out of oil in the U.S. And come January timeframe, we're not going to have any oil in the U.S. So it's going to be very difficult for them to prop up the oil price, or to keep the oil prices suppressed, and that's going to push inflation ridiculously high, double digits on the CPI, which means we're probably going to be around 20% inflation once this is all said and done, especially with the war in Ukraine still going on. Anyways, you guys stay safe out there. Please let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. I'm curious to hear all your opinions about what's going on. I really liked SBF and Sam, but I do believe that he was over-leveraged and he was a rather degenerate gambler. And CZ was kind of a jerk for doing that, but I don't think he realized it would blow up quite as big as it did. Anyways, stay safe, guys, and peace out.